One of the central elements of the Startup Analysis Canvas is the market strategy. And to understand where the market strategy fits, we'll look at what we've done and what's yet to go within the Canvas. So in the prior elements, we looked at product market fit. We've examined the problem, the competition, the solution that you have in mind. We've talked about the product in that context. And so now, as we begin to look at the market strategy, it's really these three elements of pricing, placement, and promotion that we're going to turn our attention to. As we begin to define those, it sets a foundation to look and do some further financial analysis. It's the final element of the Canvas. And then you're positioned to start your implementation, your measuring, and your refinement. And this is an iterative process where you're not going to get all the answers right the first time out, but you know the questions to ask, and you can integrate those learnings within your model. To look at a company that's done this well, we'll take a look at Warby Parker, one of the global leaders in eye care and eye products. And one of the innovations they had from a marketing aspect and a placement and promotion aspect was their home try-on program. So in the beginning, when they wrote their initial business plan as MBA students at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, their faculty member did not want to invest. Faculty member, very intelligent guy, recognized as one of the top business school faculty in the world, is a personal advisor to Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, and is a New York Times best-selling author. He looked at Warby Parker and found some flaws, and that what they were doing was arguably so innovative, its likelihood of success was debatable. One of the central reasons that they succeeded was a home try-on program where for free you can go online, you can choose up to 5 frames, and you can have them sent to you, not with your prescription, which they did consider, but they recognized that the return rates would make filling lens orders that would then have to be discarded upon return financially infeasible. But they could send you the frames which did not have a prescription lens. They just had glass, essentially a blank lens, that would give you enough of a sense of how it looked, or if your vision was so bad you couldn't see, at least friends and family could give you some insight on how you look. Or you could take a picture and then put your other glasses on and look at the picture. But it was a way that people could try the fit, the comfort, the look, find that perfect pair, send all 5 back, and then let them know which frame or frames did you want your prescription lenses in. All at no cost. And with no agreement that you even have to buy something. You can send all 5 back, say, I don't like them, I'm going to go to LensCrafters and get my glasses there. Or, I don't like those 5, send me another 5. Very innovative model. They also tell a story. They recognize that brand matters and that stories matter. And part of their story that they were telling to end users is that the existing eye care market is unfair. There is one company, Luxottica, a European firm, that controls 80% of the major eyewear brands and retailers, and even some of the leading insurance companies, like Aetna, outsource their eye care insurance to Luxottica. It is price fixing on a grand scale. The markup on your eyeglasses is over 20 times what the production costs are. And if you're dealing with a fashion pair, or Versace, Bulgari, Chanel, it may be 50 times. In that market, that is largely a monopoly, Warby Parker was able to tell a compelling story that we can sell you awesome eyewear at affordable prices by doing things differently and by doing things outside of that monopolistic market. And what they recognized is that they wanted to understand what they should do and what they shouldn't do. So in answering the question of what's the right marketing mix for them, for Warby Parker, and for their customer, they recognized that they wanted to do their design in-house, that aesthetic and look matters, and so they do their own in-house design. They also sell directly to the customer. They didn't want to go the same route that their competitors were going, of incurring the cost of dozens or hundreds of physical stores. So while there are half a dozen or so physical stores now for Warby Parker, in the beginning and for several years, they were entirely online. And that allowed them to build their presence and build a customer base that doing some physical stores made sense, but the overwhelming percentage of their revenues is still attributable to online customers. They order their materials from Italy, and they manufacture their frames in China in many of the same manufacturing firms that the high-end competitors use. So they do not own any factories. They do not produce any materials. They have contracted them to partners. They've outsourced those elements. They do design in-house. They do online selling. So on the bookends of the customer experience, they're active there. But the middle of the manufacturing, they've outsourced. They also recognize the value of brand and that there are others that are trying to do what they're doing now. And you might be able to get something that looks similar, maybe even is a little cheaper, but yet the brand that they've built really resonates with their customer base. And when the typical pair of glasses from Warby of $95 versus the $300 or $400 that might be more common with other competitors, particularly the face-to-face competitors, the mall retailers, they have a compelling story. And part of that helps them build an awareness and build an affiliation and an affinity within their user base. They've also been very clever and very cost-conscious in their marketing. So when you're dealing with fashion, apparel, accessories, eyewear, New York Fashion Week is something to do and is a big deal to be a part of. Warby could not afford it. They could not afford to pay the fees, to set up the booths, to be in the venues as part of Fashion Week. What they did is reserve a room at the New York Public Library near Fashion Week, during Fashion Week, and invite editors from the fashion magazines and the lifestyle magazines to come and attend this event. Non-traditional, but effective. And what they've also done is establish partnerships with music labels, with movie studios, and with nonprofits to help build and scale their brand in a new and novel way. And they've worked to create some flagship experiences. So when you go into their stores, if you go to their DC store, their New York store, a couple of other stores in some major urban centers, it has kind of a library look and feel. And what they've done is also have some mobile showcases, and even they repurposed a school bus. So they're kind of staying within that element of eyewear being something that is indicative of intelligence, indicative of academics, indicative of being thoughtful and curious, and a bit more unorthodox than what some of the other competitors are doing, which is a very mass market, one-size-fits-all look and feel. And so when we begin to look at market strategy, when we begin to look at price, when we begin to look at placement, and when we begin to look at promotion, I think Warby is a good example of somebody that's taken on a giant in Luxottica, taken on a monopoly, and succeeded by being thoughtful, by being analytical. Even in choosing the name Warby Parker, the founders are not named Warby and Parker. They developed a list of 2,000 candidate names and spent 6 months deciding what their name should be. They didn't wait 6 months and pick a name. They started trying to develop a name that they thought would resonate with the market and analyzed that name for 6 months as they were building other parts of the business to try and pick the perfect name among 2,000 alternatives. So being analytical, being methodical is part of the startup analysis canvas, that analysis piece. And so when we look at marketing, we recognize that it's subjective in some ways, but there are some established methodologies and tools and techniques that we can use to build out our marketing mix.